So referencing is a very important part of our submission for the outcome and something that can be pretty confusing. So there's a few pointers that I want to go through with you in these videos just to really help you get your head around what you're doing. So the first thing I guess we need to think about is, why are you referencing? So referencing is needed if you are quoting something, if you are directly referring to some information that you have gotten from somewhere else, if you're trying to prove a point, if you're trying to substantiate a point, if you're trying to show us who else supports your point. So that means literally every point that you make needs to have references if it is something that you have gotten from somewhere else. That's really important. So it's not just like once or twice, it's not just every now and then, it's throughout the piece. So what I want to show you is an example, okay? So here's a outcome from last year, and we can see that this person has been trying to do substantiation by introducing her sources really nicely, telling us that she's read an academic resource and she's put a quote into it. Now that's awesome, but at the moment you can see she doesn't have a reference. She has referred to the source, she has used the source, but she has not referenced the source. So now she needs to make a choice. Is she going to do an in-text reference or is she going to do a footnote? So I'm going to talk about the in-text referencing first. In-text is easier because you just write it up, but it does mess with your word count, and it means that you need to keep track of your word counts unless you're using the citation feature, which I'm not going to talk about in this video, but if you want to ask me about it, we can talk about it later. Basic in-text reference is the name of the resource, which for her is, whatever it is. Let's just say it's Smith from 2017, and she got it from page 5 of the resource. She's put the in-text reference after the quote. The full stop goes after the in-text reference. That's really important. Then what we can see is she's gone further and she's looked at something by Paul Harper, and it's concluded that a well-rounded definition is etc., etc. So now we have another source, and again, in-text referencing, I would at the end of the sentence have the name of the author, when it was published, and if appropriate, the page number. If I don't know the page number because it was a website, then I don't have a page number in there. We can then see that she also has an interview with Peter Vidler, and she explains that this is someone who works in the Aware Dogs program. We get a really clear understanding of why they're there. And then again, we get their quote. That's not enough though. Again, we need to have our formal reference. So we're going to have Vidler. We're going to have 2020. Now, you might be using a reference generator, which means that when you go to create your reference, they might give you some more information. They might say Vidler, interview, 2020. It doesn't matter, as long as you are consistent in the format that you use. So what this means is when you go to Cite This For Me or Harvard Generator or whatever it is that you're doing, when you insert a website, let's just do whatever one, okay, Wikipedia of potatoes. When we go into it and we get our citation, and we know that Wikipedia doesn't have authors, so there's not going to be any, you will see that this has given us an in-text of potato 2020. Now that's not necessarily the most accurate way for us to record this source. It should actually be Wikipedia. And this is why you have to be really careful when you're using a generator. What we would then do is fix it. So if I had been quoting Wikipedia, I would then put that in. Because my reference generator thought that this resource was about potatoes and written by a potato, it's given me a potato as a reference. That's not the correct one, and I need to manually fix it. So even though you can use a reference generator to get an in-text reference, it's not necessarily the most accurate system to use. I'm going to talk about footnoting, and I'm going to show you some examples in the next video.